Hey guys, welcome to your introduction to psychologically abnormal behavior. Alright, so psychologically abnormal behavior is an interesting term because it talks about basically mental illness and mental disorders, which is historically something that people don't like to talk about. So I feel a little awkward talking about it sometimes just because I worry about if I'm going to say the right thing. I know students feel awkward talking about it sometimes for the same reason. So we are just going to agree that we are going to give each other a pass and assume the best of intentions. Okay, so you shouldn't be afraid to talk about any of this stuff. I'm going to do my best not to be either. And let's jump in. So one of the reasons that people feel so awkward talking about abnormal behavior is that it's called a variety of things, many of which are insulting, like insanity, mental disorders, lunacy, craziness, psycho, emotional disturbances, right? Basically, we paint people as out of their minds, which is not accurate. So I want you to think for a second. What does it mean that this study of psychology is called abnormal? There was your second. It means that it's not normal, which is actually a misnomer because over 50% of the population has been diagnosed with some sort of mental illness in their lifetime. Honestly, I'm pretty convinced that everyone exhibits some symptoms of some sort of mental illness at some point. It just depends on what access to mental health you have and the degree of symptoms. But there's no such thing as normal in our brains. So the fact that we call this abnormal is kind of putting it in a box where it doesn't need to be and where it kind of gets cloaked in stigma and people being afraid to talk about it when really this is a normal experience. So, historically, abnormal psychology was viewed, well, mental illnesses were viewed as being caused by demons in Chinese, Egyptian, and in Hebrew writings. As such, it was cured by exorcisms, starvation, and also this fun thing called trephination, where you just drilled holes into people's skulls, which is essentially a lobotomy, but before we knew what a lobotomy was. In Greece and Rome, those great civilizations, they believed that the illnesses resulted from an imbalance of the four humors. Black bile, which is basically the stuff that comes out your rear end, yellow bile, blood, and phlegm. And the way to fix these four humors in balance is to put leeches on someone and bleed them out. That's not going to help your mental health at all. In the Renaissance, they started kind of sequestering people who presented as different in asylums, which is basically a term for a mental hospital. And they believed that people were mad, they'd gone mad, because they had lost their ability to reason. Therefore, they were no better than animals, and therefore didn't need to be treated any different from animals. Obviously, we can see a lot of issues with that today. We would hope not to do this in an effort to treat people, but of course, it does still happen occasionally. As we get kind of more into the 20th century, people began to think that moral therapy was more appropriate. So people like Benjamin Rush and Dorothea Dix, who I'm sure you learned about in US history, believed that we should treat people humanely and with respect. And so instead of just shoving people into an asylum and saying you're all animals, it doesn't matter what you do in there, they changed therapy to rest and talk and prayer and manual work and things that were actually getting them moving and thinking and kind of reintegrating into society. They still called them asylums, as you can see up here, lunatic asylum, but the conditions were marginally better. Then you have some of our favorite psychologists like Freud here and Pavlov, who started to explain abnormalities in childhood and in adulthood. So that leads us to look at some theories. As we got into the mid 20th century and definitely now in the 21st century, the use of medication has risen astronomically. Some medications are found to be helpful in alleviating mental illnesses, but they're not always effective, or they have crazy side effects that you don't want, such as, for example, when the US government decided to see if LSD was a truth serum and sent people on wild trips. Basically, we don't know enough about medication to know for whom they will work for or how much that person will need without experimenting. Okay, so we're going to talk about why mental illness exists according to our different psychological theories. So recall back at the beginning of the semester when we talked about Andrea Yates and all of the different psych theories that we could use to examine her. We're going back to those theories because we actually don't know why mental illness exists. Again, calling it mental illness because that's what society calls it. Really, it's just a range of normal brain function. But these are some of the theories. So the biomedical model, right here, has a couple of theories. First, that germs can cause problems. Second, that genes can cause problems. So that's why you see a family history of depression or of anxiety or bipolar or what have you. Also, that biochemistry can change problem or can cause problems. So back when we talked about neurotransmitters, you might often hear that there's a chemical imbalance in people's brains. There's not enough serotonin or not enough dopamine. That is saying that the biochemistry of someone's brain is causing the mental illness. Also, neuroanatomy can cause problems like abnormal brain structures. For instance, you watched a video about this girl with half of her brain. That could cause some differences. Usually, the treatment for people who adhere to a biomedical model is drug therapy, which, like we said, is not always helpful. Another theory is the psychodynamic model. The psychodynamic model is basically Freud and kind of like the more scientific version of Freud now because we don't really believe Freud anymore. But he did still inspire the psychodynamic model, which asserts that abnormality is the result of the ego. Remember, the ego is the compromiser, with a lack of compromise between the id, what you want, and the superego, what society wants. Usually, you are going to look for the cause somewhere in childhood. You were treated X way, you suffered X abuse, and therefore you have X mental illness. Treatment is often characterized by talk therapy and role playing, in which you pretend to confront kind of the cause of your mental illness. The humanistic model. Humanistic model assumes that everyone has a unique experience of the world and that your experience of the world is your reality. I mean, that's true, right? So abnormality, therefore, exists when we try to fit into the worldview of others rather than our own. For instance, you might be depressed because you're adhering to society standards, but if you just develop positive self-regard and basically treat your worldview as the one reality, you can learn to trust yourself and therefore kind of work with it. So that's the humanistic model. Cognitive model assumes that your thinking, your cognitive processes are maladaptive or irrational. So here, like, I will never get married is the thought. And you might feel that at your cousin's wedding and lead to feelings of sadness and hopelessness, even though obviously just attending your cousin's wedding doesn't mean that you will never get married. The treatment is to expose the irrational patterns of thinking and replace them with logical patterns. That's called cognitive behavioral therapy. The behavioral model says that behaviors are determined by the environment through conditioning, which we already talked about. So therefore, the problems are not symptoms, but problems in themselves. So we have to extinguish unwanted behaviors through reinforcement. Then we've got the social cognitive, which is kind of like a blend between social and cognitive. Behaviors are caused by a combination of the environment, behavior, and the individual person. Therefore, modeling, building self-efficacy, and facilitating regulation of behavior are all going to help people in that trifecta of influence. If you want more of an overview about psychological disorders and their history, I suggest that you watch this crash course. but since he's already said it, I'm not going to re-say it. So that is just kind of a blip of what is mental disorder in general, and next you'll be looking at what are specific mental disorders. How do I stop this?